Okay, hello and welcome to the Dasharo User Group number 2 or second edition. So thank you for coming and meeting with us and listening about what we have to say about Dasharo updates. And yeah, so we are essentially meeting today to have two events. First is Dasharo User Group, which is kind of scheduled event with the scheduled presentation. The agenda is on the website on the vPub Dasharo.com, and then you can go to the correct event, and in that event you can check what kind of schedule we have. And after that, there are 2 hours of this scheduled presentations, and after that we're switching to vPub mode. And in this vPub mode, I don't know, with whatever beverage of your choice, we will speak about the open source firmware, open source hardware, privacy, security, and all other stuff that we care about, trustworthiness of the computing. Yeah, so that's it. That's it for this slide. The agenda for the user group for the scheduled one is like this. I guess I changed it a lot, so the most recent version is on the page. But essentially, we're starting with this presentation with the. Do I have any problems with sharing? Because okay, there's some problem on my side. Anyway, we're starting with greeting. Okay, I have no idea what's going on. It's like flickering. Damn, what is going on? Just give me a second. Oh, that's it. So we essentially start. Okay. So we start with these greetings, then we will have Jan from Nitrokey doing the Nitrokey introduction. So you will know what we will talk about in Dasharo Announcements. Then we will, after Dasharo Announcement, we will have Dasharo Roadmap. And there is some small in agenda here, like I will put agenda, I guess we even changed the agenda today. So then after that, there will be presentation from Wessel. He will talk a little bit about roadmap of NovaCustom and NovaCustom devices and support for firmware. And then I guess before Wessel, I will also talk about other projects like Dasharo Toolsuit roadmap and the openness score. So as I said, this roadmap was changed even today, a couple hours ago. So that's why the slides are not in sync. If you want to see the precise roadmap for today, precise agenda for today, please go to the vPub Dasharo.com and just click to the Dasharo User Group number 2, and you will find the details. Okay. So that's it for. So about status of the community, what changed over last quarter? On the upper left side, we have status of the repositories and Dasharo issues repo. So we essentially grow the number of the reported bugs to the 455. It's plus 95 since the last meeting, which was mid-March. We were able to fix 41 bugs, and we grow the number of fixed bugs to 166. In case of Dasharo core boot fork, we added 35 pull requests. We're talking about full number of the pull requests that were merged to the tree. So the total number of the pull requests is like 355. The EDK2 fork, so UEFI reference implementation fork that Dasharo maintain, gained 13 pull requests. And in case of the comments under the issues, we gained like 136 comments over last quarter, and then we gained also 12 new unique commenters, reporters of the bugs to the Dasharo issues repository. So In this place, I would like to thank the most active commenters. There's not much that changed over the quarter, like the leadership of the active users on the Dasharo issues is so ahead to the new ones that they keep in the same order. So Thierry Laurion, first place as a most active Dasharo issues commenter. Then there is Wessel, our partner from NovaCustom, CEO of NovaCustom. Zir Blazer, always active in community. So thank you, Zir Blazer, for that. Morier 5, those comments are, some of those are old, but still he commented a lot and he was very active. And then fifth position is Firminator and René. Yeah, so Moriel 5 will have today some discussion during the vPub about hacking the ONT, the fiber termination, optical network termination device. Okay, so in terms of right side, when we're talking a little bit about the activity of Dasharo General Matrix channel, we gained 6,000 messages over the last quarter, what means around 52 messages a day. So it's quite active. It's more active than it was before, because before it was like around 50 messages a day, and now we are 52. We gained like 50% of users. So this is enormous growth. So thank you very much for your support and for joining the community and discussing privacy and security topics. Here we have also high activity by Zir Blazer, and I don't know if anyone can beat him in being so fast in responding to any potential queries to newcomers. So thank you, Zir Blazer, again for that. Collector YHN was very active doing stuff with Supermicro X11. Technophil at some point very active. Demi, I guess. Yeah, we hear you. So Demi was also always very, very active, and Demi also have a slot during the vPub today, and we will talk about Demi with Demi about Cubes and Spectrum OS, if those OSs can keep. Yeah, Norbert, you have to mute yourself because like you making some noises. Anyway, so thanks to Demi, we can talk about GPU pass-through, and if CubesOS and Spectrum can keep their promises in terms of separation and providing trustworthy operating system or reasonably secure operating system. There is also Creative Nothing, and I guess this is the only change in this statistics in activity of the users. Han Etzer get to the 5th position of being most active Dasharo General user. Of course, this is excluding the 3MDEP members, the 3MDEP employees. So thanks for that, Han Etzer. And Han Etzer will have today also some discussion about AMD stuff and like what are the potential of AMD devices in the open source firmware ecosystem. And this would be during the vPub, and we will probably touch the OpenSeal topic. On the bottom, you have like rough timeline. We started Dasharo GitHub in 2020, and then in 21 we created our first virtual pub. This was during the COVID time. It was after FOSDEM. And then we just continue our vPubs, and right now for second quarter we have Dasharo User Group, and then after Dasharo User Group we have a vPub where we can drink our beverage of choice and talk about privacy and security. Okay, so I always give you some heads up about Dasharo Matrix space, because this is main communication channel for the community. Not everyone knows that there are 20 channels in the space. So it's not about Dasharo General or Dasharo Developers vPub channel. There are also other channels which are in this group. So one very active is, of course, CubesOS bridge. I don't know how this will work with this all Libera chat problems. We can also talk about that during the vPub, but I hope this will still work and somehow we will solve this kind of problems. Dasharo support is quite active, and interestingly, over a couple last months, Trenchboot getting more active thanks to the fact that 3MDeb get the grant for doing the Trenchboot for CubesOS. So Trenchboot as an anti-evil technology for CubesOS. There are some new channels which are dedicated to laptops and to servers. There is one dedicated to X11 Supermicro, and there are some associated channels to other projects. Like I see Daniel is here, so there is Fietka channel. Fietka is a firmware editor. There is a trustworthy platform module, which is open hardware project made by 3MDeb to create open hardware TPM. Fobnail attestation server on a USB token. We also did the FWPD port to BSD. That's also a dedicated channel to that. And at some point in the past, we tried to do our own port of EC firmware, but this is less active right now. So that's it for now. I guess we can switch to Jan. Jan, are you there? Yeah. So let's take a 1 minute break and we can switch to Jan.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jan. I'm founder and CEO of Nitrokey. Nitrokey is a German company started 8 years ago, and we are focused on IT security hardware and open source. Essentially, all our developments are published as open source, and we have open hardware products as well. Not all of them, but some of them. We have a larger portfolio, which I will show on the next slide. Essentially, our mission is to secure your digital life. So this means to provide IT security hardware which provides transparent, in terms of open source and open hardware, security in various dimensions of your digital life. We also try to produce our hardware in Germany, at least for those which we produce ourselves. And we have a small team of less than 20 people, but already, I think, a good map of international well-known customers. We not only focus on enterprises, but also on private persons. So it's a kind of mixture of both of these domains. So our portfolio, these are the key products we have, and we started with USB keys, which are also called Nitrokeys, where we offer now several of these. They are all developed as open source and open hardware and produced here in Berlin. Our newest generation of the Nitrokey 3 is a state-of-the-art security key, which provides you features as you expect, like FIDO authentication, either second factor authentication or passwordless authentication, one-time passwords, open PGP card or PIV, which means it's essentially a smart card to store your cryptographic keys securely in the hardware. and to prevent that your cryptographic keys are stolen, even if your device is lost. And then you can use these for arbitrary cryptographic operations, such as, say, email encryption is one of the popular use cases, authentication to SSH servers, signing of certificates, and a whole bunch of different scenarios. These devices have also a touch button and NFC interface. We also have a HSM device in the USB key form factor. So HSM stands for Hardware Security Module, which provides more or supports more professional cryptographic key operations, more key management-like features. And I try to go here historically. Our second, say, product domain is a NitroPad on the left side, which is a ThinkPad. Now there are different models available, also in collaboration with some other partners, which we'll talk here later. We ship these NitroPads with the HATS firmware. I assume this will be explained later anyways. Install them with a Linux-based operating system. Often it is equipped with cubes. And we provide also some services around us, like first of all, shipment services that we ship the Nitrokey and the laptop and separate, or that we seal the packages and send the pictures of individual seals to the customers in order to allow the verification that the package has been arrived and has not been tampered with in the meanwhile. We also provide cubes training and cube services, even on an hourly basis, for individuals who may have some questions or issues with cubes, and we help them to set up their system and to understand all the concepts and obstacles with cubes. Yeah, to not talk too much here, we have Nextbox at the bottom left, which is a dedicated Nextcloud device tailored to be usable without technical knowledge. So yes, there is a Linux underneath, but this is very much tailored and with a wizard provided so that this device can be used very easily and doesn't need any knowledge about Linux or terminals or technical configuration. So it works pretty much out of the box and gets also software updates automatically. Then in the middle, we have a Nitro Wall, which is a firewall, IPS, and VPN gateway, like a network device, obviously. At the bottom also a Nitro PC, which is kind of similar to our laptops, but in a different form factor. Then on the right side, we have the Nitro Phone. That's essentially a Google Pixel phone pre-installed with Graphene OS, which is, if you don't know this already, which is a very nice Android system because it's highly secure, doesn't come with any bloatware or Google services or anything like this, has a strong hardening integrated, and it's still super easy to use. Optionally, we physically desolder microphones, sensors, cameras out of the device, so this phone then can really be used as an absolute secure device, at least in terms of that it cannot eavesdrop the surroundings. And then people can use a headset to do their phone calls. And then at the bottom, the largest device here is a 19-inch Net HSM, which is a hardware security module. Again, it's kind of same as in USB form factor, but of course more powerful. And here is one of the first open source HSM devices, providing high security because it's a very novel security architecture which we implemented here. The software is kind of embedded software. The entire binary is about 50 megabytes in size, it doesn't come with a ordinary Linux stack, something more sophisticated, but I think I'm running out of time here. So we'll hand over to the next. I think it gives you a good presentation, impression of what Nitrokey does. And of course, if you have any questions, I will be around here also later on. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so the next segment is some Dasharo announcements, which we plan to have with our partners today. So the agenda will look as follows. We would like to present something which is called Dasharo entry subscription. I guess like some of you already know about the Dasharo subscription that you can that you're buying as a part of the MSI product, but we essentially trying to extend this product. We changed a little bit the name because previously there was Dasharo supporter entrance, which is kind of like maybe not the best name. Right now we will call it Dasharo entry subscription, and I do not promise we will not change this in future. So like just associate that with Dasharo subscription. So I will talk a little bit about the value proposition of that. Then I will announce something which is called Dasharo revenue sharing program, which we then announce some partners which already signed the Dasharo revenue sharing program. Nitrokey and NovaCustom will tell a little bit about benefits they see in this program. And then we will switch to Dasharo supporting partner program, which is another program that we created to associate with friends like Insurgo to build. And okay, I will not spoil it. Like I will tell you at the correct point. Anyway, I will then overview this program. Then the first partner who joins that is Insurgo. So Thierry will explain what kind of benefits he sees in that. And then I will summarize whole presentation with the benefits of all these programs together, this subscription, this revenue sharing, this supporting partner, what kind of 3M Dev gets, and how we plan to innovate open source firmware ecosystem with that. Okay, so maybe let's start with Dasharo entry subscription. First of all, we know that we have this problem of how we earn on open source stuff, on open source firmware. Of course, like everything is open, so nobody in theory wants to pay for that. But in practice, it's not exactly like that. Some people who have time, so maybe it depends on the if you have more time than money, or you have more money than time. So I guess those who have more time than money, then they can hack whatever they want. And that's completely fine. We are okay with that. The code is there. The instructions are there. We hope they will transition into very productive users, testers, maybe in future in developers, contributors to open source firmware ecosystem. And we are completely fine with that. But there is this other group who kind of don't want to waste so much time on setting up the tool chain, testing everything, making sure that firmware I'm flashing will not show me the magic smoke from my device. So maybe I will have some small insurance in form of small fee, which is called a Dasharo entry subscription, which would be renewed every year. So I can have this assurance of validated firmware binary signed by a trusted party known in the open source firmware ecosystem. So that's what Dasharo entry subscription is, and where we're trying to address is that's the audience which we're trying to address with this offer. What Dasharo entry subscription gives? So first of all, those are the special updates. So this is early access to some enhancing privacy, security features, performance, compatibility features. So essentially, we early release binaries to those who paid for the subscription. Of course, if someone wants to glue something themselves from the code which is on the repository, that's completely fine. Those releases, those supporter releases or special updates are more frequent and going directly to the inbox of the subscriber. After some time, we release the community releases, which we just squash all the special releases into one community release and publish that to everyone. I will show that on some flows on the next slide. Of course, there is an exclusive newsletter. We have to have good marketing name for that. This is like comprehensive and meaningful release notes with the links to the documentation, how to use given feature. Then there is this documentation. There is software bill of materials assigned to that. What kind of components we included, where we get those components. And of course, if someone wants to either use it first time for the initial deployment of the open source firmware on their hardware, either do the update, the instruction is there. Then, of course, something may still not work. There may be some hardware configuration which needs support, was not covered during testing or something like that. For that, we have Premier support. There is a dedicated matrix channel, Dasharo Premier support, to which we invite only those who paid for the subscription. And finally, over this channel and over discussion, over the vPubs, over the Dasharo User Group, people can join and try to influence Dasharo, say, okay, I'm paying this subscription. I would like to have raise your attention to this given issue or to this given feature. And they can, in that way, drive the development of Dasharo in correct direction. So why we even get to that point of creating this subscription, and like why we even thinking about this bad thing that we want to sell subscriptions? So first of all, we got quite a lot of attention from various media about the MSI last year, and like we were very happy with that. It was a lot of noise. Then we started to sell the board, main board alone, main board with recovery kit, main board like full PC build, also the CubesOS certified version called Fidelis Guard, and everything was associated with this supporters entrance, which is called right now Dasharo entry subscription fee for a year. Or someone could buy even for multiple years. And to be honest, we were very surprised with the response of the market that people essentially buying that. Like people essentially want. Some people even bought that for next 3 years. So it's very interesting that either they want to support us, either they really think that there is value in this newsletter or in this support stuff. So I'm very happy that community gave us market signal that this works, and I just want to scale that. The problem that 3MDev has to some extent is that we are a small company, not specialized in logistics stuff, in the hardware selling stuff, and that's why we decided to do something about that. That's why we created Dasharo revenue sharing program, where the flow exactly looks as follows. So we have our customers, which so far were happy to buy the hardware with Dasharo subscription or the subscription alone. And we decided to include a new entity into this equation. Instead of selling that everything through Dasharo team or 3MDev shop, we decided we need someone who we call Dasharo entry subscription reseller. Thanks to that entity, we can recommend those entities on our website, so people in other area of the globe, in various countries, can buy from those parties. And this works in that way that customer buying from those parties, the Dasharo entry subscription reseller collects those payments, takes some small amount from that, send the rest to us, and thanks to that we can support Dasharo development in long run. Of course, there is one more piece in this equation, which we call Dasharo supporting partner, And Dasharo supporting partner is someone who helps us in development of Dasharo, in development of various versions of Dasharo, and I will tell a little bit about that on the further slides. So we hope this mechanism will work and this mechanism will scale. In that way, we can essentially spread the word and spread the mechanism of having spread the open source firmware ecosystem faster and build a good relation with those companies who really care about selling hardware with open source firmware. Yeah, so I guess I would like to announce that our first notable Dasharo revenue selling partner is Nitrokey, and I would like Jan to say a little bit about the benefits that he see in this program. So maybe I will share, Jan, your slides, and you can. Do you see it? I guess it should be seen.
I see it, yes. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So Piotr, it was actually Piotr's idea for this collaboration. I really much appreciate this because I think it allows both our companies to focus on their strengths and what they are doing all day long and what they are good in. And from the Nitrokey perspective, this means that we can focus on things which, say, other companies may not even want to get used in, like you need to if you want to provide a good customer experience, like somebody orders a hardware device, he or she expected to arrive in a certain amount of time and a good quality. And so this requires to have the purchasing process and purchasing sources under control. Also to get the hardware delivered and purchased in a certain quality as expected, to have some quality controls, to have it also available in the warehouse. These are all, from a technical perspective, maybe not very exciting things, but things which you may assume to be granted when you order something at any seller. And this is something we at Nitrokey have been doing now for several years, and I think we are now pretty good at, especially for these products which we have and where we don't purchase in say huge quantities like millions, but a few hundreds or thousands. There are different challenges than for larger companies, and I think we have this pretty much under control. And this allows us also then to produce and to ship the devices relatively fast, usually in a couple of days, depending on the device, maybe even at the same day. And also have some experience with the shipments. Again, something not very exciting, no rocket science, but something we have learned now over the years, say which shipment service works well in which country. There are very much different qualities. And then, as mentioned also earlier, when introducing Nitrokey, we provide additional services such as sealing packages, sending pictures of these individual seals to customers via email so that they're allowed to verify it and to ensure that the package has not been tampered with, provide additional support services around these orders. And since we are doing all these things every day anyways, except beside of our technical development, of course, it's relatively easy for us to add new products now, where 3M Lab is going to provide the technical foundation and add these products now to our portfolio and provide here the same quality. I hope at the same time this allows 3M Lab to focus in more on their developing and strengths, so that we all together will get a better ecosystem with better availability of open source hardware, or at least hardware with open source firmware. So that's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Jan. Yeah, definitely agree. So, So let me introduce the second partner, which is NovaCustom. So NovaCustom also decided in some, we already have relation with NovaCustom, and NovaCustom decided in some for some models to be part of this revenue sharing partnership agreement. And let me share. I don't know, like Wessel, do you want to share your presentation or I should share yours?
Yeah, you can share mine. That would be great.
I guess
There it is.
This one, or maybe I will.
Yeah, this one. This is correct.
This is correct, or maybe I should just do the slideshow here.
Yeah.
Sure. Let me. I want to share the Wessel's screen. Do you see it?
Yes. Yes. There it is.
Okay.
Thank you, Piotr. So yeah, from our side, the great benefit of this program is that some kind of code can be shared with other joiners, and this will, of course, for us decrease the development costs. Also, that Dasharo offers Firmware support directly to the customer is really a great thing for us, because we do not have the specialized support in-house. So this also allows the end customer to get support even faster. There is no need for us anymore to interfere for firmware-related issues. It goes directly to these specialists. And with this kind of program, we don't have to make a lot of huge investments. So it takes down the risks. So yeah, those are the benefits for us.
Okay, thank you, Wessel. Yeah, completely agree with that, and we'll summarize at the end with more of my my stuff. But let me go to the next slide, where I would like to talk a little bit about. I guess you see my slides, but I would like to make sure that I can switch that. Okay, why doesn't this work? Okay, I guess you see my next slide. It's about the second program which we created to even improve this ecosystem. So right now we have this Dasharo revenue sharing, but there is this part of the firmware which would be better handled by other specialists in the ecosystem. And it may happen that we would like to have partners which will help us support all this stuff and all these problems, and together we can build stronger and better support for everyone. So the idea here that I described is Dasharo supporting partner agreement. So considering we have this revenue sharing partners, Dasharo entry subscription resellers, we adding this partner, and let's say the customers will have some problems with the firmware, or with the compatibility, or the results of the tests, or reproducibility of the code, or whatever problems they may have. They send some initial request. They typically contact the seller, the one who sold the hardware with the subscription, and the seller decide if this is like kind of something they can handle in terms of it's related to hardware or it's related to firmware. If it's related to firmware, it goes to us. So it's escalated to Dasharo team. But Dasharo team may analyze that and decide that this going to some other stuff. Like, for example, if we're talking about Dasharo version, which consists of core boot and heads, then we probably would like to talk. With Thierry, who's specialist and who maintains heads for many years. And we definitely know that if we show some problem to Thierry will very quickly know, like, okay, this is here or there. And then in that way, we simplify all the bug resolving pipeline. Yeah, and there may be other sources of customer requests. This customers can go directly to the primary support channel. not go through the reseller, but go to directly to primary support and say, like, this doesn't work. And on this channel, there will be Dasharo team, and there will be also our partners, like Insurgo, which I will announce in a minute. And then we can together decide, okay, this is in this area, or this is potentially in that area, and this is how we should deal with that. Or maybe this is somehow duplicate of something else. And then we have incentive to fix that long-standing bug in the firmware. And there are also Dasharo public channels like GitHub issues, which we also can then analyze. First of all, check if the person who's reporting the stuff is a subscriber or not subscriber, because the service level agreement depends a lot on that. And if this is subscriber and this needs escalation to the partner, we're doing this flow. So this is essentially how we imagine it will work. We will see. This is like essentially one big, we can say, experiment, but we believe this will scale. And I would like to introduce Insurgo as our first supporting partner. So Thierry, thanks for joining this. Thanks for believing this, and tell us more a little bit about benefits that you see in this program. And the question is if I should share your presentation or I should.
Yeah. Please
okay.
share.
Yeah, I will do that. Just give me a second.
And I promise to skip really fast because I have a I have a tendency of being longer than I should. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm looking for it. Okay, let me go with this. Start from current slide, I guess, and then I have to share. Window, this one. Just tell me next slide if you need it.
Full screen.
Is it full screen or it's not?
No, it's not.
So maybe this is not this window. Just me try me differently. This is this one. Correct? Or...
Yes. Okay, but this is me. Basically, the important part there is that I'm currently the EDS main maintainer. I started the Privacy Beast, the Reownership Wizard, and everything back in 2017. Next slide. The goal of all we are doing, I think, is to be an alternative to the closed source firmware supply chain. So this is what we have right now normally. Next slide. And this is what we have with EDS today. Next slide. So basically what is EDS? EDS is a payload and a build system. The reason why EDS is interesting inside a payload is that it acts as the bootloader. So next slide. So basically EDS is core boot and Linux as the payload. So basically we are differing all the tasks related to parsing the grub configuration and everything inside of the Linux payload, which includes all the tools that are needed to be able to run a recovery environment, to produce beautiful graphics and everything, to the point of launching the final OS, which is basically a key exec into the operating system after having applied and verified the security policies. So making sure the computer is in the state that we expect it to be. Next slide. So we said earlier that ED was a payload and also a build system. That's what I will get into. I just wanted this to be in the recording so that we can discuss that later on. Basically, it's a make project. So the complication inside of EDS is to have like the reproducible builds as a goal. And then the outcome of that is to produce artifacts that are supposed to be reproducible. And that's where we like having multiple people looking into this will be interesting. Next slide. Oh, okay. So basically, Insurgo benefits as a partner in this revenue sharing is that, just like Peter said before me, the more people, the more qualified people we will be into looking at the code and being able like to resolve the issues that may come is to be multiple people aware of where are the problems. For example, 3MDeb is more an expert into like embedded systems. making like dealing with other tools and everything. As of right now, like the build system of EDS works for Debian 11. We all know in the core boot communities that like building reproducibly like an outcome is complicated. So the next step will be to actually finish that and being able to have like core boot as a payload that is completely reproducible, thanks to Nix that's coming as a build system. So being able to tackle the issue of reproducible once and for all, and then be attaining a better sustainability for the project, because as of right now, EDS is based on NLNet funding. I worked a lot like to sell products to be able to do R&D. So the goal with all of this, if we are able to get a sustainable money stream, would be to maintain partly as being paid and having like other funding to tackle the research parts. So the get home message for all of this, to me, to answer go into EDS, is a better collaboration into EDS. So more knowledge sharing. It's already happening without this revenue sharing. Like 3MDeb is collaborating a lot through power efforts and everything. Like I like the experience that we have right now. And everything that is happening inside of it is actually benefiting the rest of the ecosystem. So I see a world where core boot will be able to produce their own ROMs so that like testing will be easier for the whole community. So yeah, expand the open source firmware ecosystem, the feature, its reach, and its support. That's what I see as benefit as a partner and the whole ecosystem. That's it.
Thank you very much, Thierry. It's like I have all of these hopes also. We will see where this will going, but if we will not trying, we will not fail, and if we will not fail, we will not learn. So
exactly.
So we have to learn, and that's I guess the most important thing. Let me try to get back to my slides. I guess I have a couple more. So I know we are already tight on schedule, but yeah, so I don't know if I can fit in 1 minute. I will try, but essentially I would like to summarize all the stuff that was said by Jan, by Wessel, by Thierry, and kind of present that also from the 3MDeb perspective and how we see this. So first thing is like 3MDeb is not known from selling hardware. It's like we are not hardware selling experts, and to be honest, we also like want to focus on the correct area. So revenue sharing is our idea of reaching wider market, of amplifying the scalability and adoption of the open source firmware, of course through Dasharo, the Dasharo distribution. But I guess like if this model will work, other will look at it and maybe they will try to mimic it and try to do the same. So I hope this will bring some fresh air to innovation in the business models for the open source firmware. I guess the efficient bug resolving is very important, because if we have multiple partners like operating on the same hardware, then like we have like a lot more feedback from the users, and fixing one bug will help everyone. It's not like okay, this customer got this bug, we're fixing it, okay, releasing for them, and then maybe other customer got that bug. We have to backport that bug to this tree, and so on and so on. This is like constant problem in maintaining long-term support for some platforms. We believe that the extended support will allow us to deliver the value after market, like after the devices even are not on the market. Like let's say at some point the 11th generation, 12th generation devices will be old one, and maybe those will be not so popular. Let's say we will be at, I don't know, 16th generation or 15th generation, but there may be people which will still use those devices, and they will be able to get the Dasharo entry subscription and get the support for the firmware. Whatever will happen with the operating system innovation and changes, we could adjust to that and make those old devices working. Jan said very well about this focus and doing what we are best in. So 3MDeb does the open source firmware development. We are open source firmware vendor, independent BIOS vendor. We are doing development of the firmware. The hardware, logistics, regulations regarding that, customer support, like massive customer support, is not our strength. It's something that we would be glad to delegate to our partners and share with them the value that we generate. Revenue diversification is also very, very important, because adding the subscription and revenue sharing, we can make everything more sustainable. It's not about like porting all the new devices. Porting devices to the to core boot, to whatever framework we have, is like building the bigger code base. And bigger code base we have, more developers we need to maintain. So it's not only about building like hundreds of ports by one company, because this company, if it's too small, will not be able to handle the problems caused by generating so much code. And there are always bugs, as we know. So it's better to try to go with the scale and have as many devices delivered on the same code base than having like, multiple code bases. So our sources of revenue are porting new devices, but additional source of revenue could be this revenue sharing of the Dasharo entry subscription fee. And finally, we kind of feel like those who are with us for some time understand that we feel responsible for this ecosystem. We feel that this ecosystem is filled with the small players, like huge empty space, and hyperscalers. So there is like in between, there is empty space, which needs some guidance, which needs some animation, which needs some stewardship and some responsible ideas generation, and people that will follow that and try and maybe fail, but they will learn, and to build something that is sustainable in between. And that's how 3MDev sees itself, as someone who proposed this new, hopefully sustainable business models. About supporting partner program, I guess with Thierry, we always have this great technical discussion for long vPubs, like trying to resolve various stuff, trying to understand how things should be done. So this mutual technological development and sharing knowledge is very important for us. Of course, in this, also focus on the frameworks that we are best in. 3MDev does EDK2 payload, does the core boot stuff. We do also low-level security technologies. We also know a little bit of Linux, so we can help with heads. That's completely fine. But some areas of heads are specific to Thierry, to his maintainership in the project, and that's how we would like to divide the work and share our knowledge and our time. Of course, community building. Thanks to that, we can meet together and plan how things should go forward together. And of course, some revenue generation for those small projects, which right now do not have huge injection of money. Like, I guess there is no open source firmware project which got huge injection of money, but I guess like at least we will try to add something to the stake, so it would be easier to move forward. Yeah, so finally, like how to join the program, just contact us, send us email that you are interested. Typical question which we will ask is like, what kind of hardware you would like to use for this revenue sharing program, or what kind of technology you can support us in. Then, of course, we will definitely ask question about the annual volumes, because we would like to know what kind of support we can deal with. And then what Dasharo or open source firmware version you are interested in. Is it like Dasharo core boot plus heads? Is it Dasharo core boot plus UEFI? Or whatever, I don't know, whatever other combination, CBIOS, or like whatever other combination you will need. Yeah, just send us email, contact us, and that's it. So I guess, I don't know, we probably don't have time for questions, but we can discuss all this stuff during the vPub. Okay, so the next segment of the Dasharo User Group is about Dasharo Roadmap. I guess we will make it like a standard segment where we're talking about, okay, what's going on on the roadmap? Are we shifting any releases? What kind of releases we're planning? What kind of projects we're working on? And all that stuff is only about community supported devices, but I will explain that in the further slides. So first, disclaimer, like of course nothing that we show here is like set in stone. Please do not do any investments based on that, and whatever, do not plan based on that, because those things can change. So to explain how Dasharo right now function and what kind of revenue streams we have, essentially we can support Dasharo in a couple ways. So first is the Dasharo Enterprise package. So this is like a hyperscaler or whatever very big company coming through 3M Dev, demands full copyright transfer or whatever, like special stuff which is expensive, or custom SLA like time of reaction or whatever things they want, and there is special contract for them. Very often this code even not see the open source community, but we always trying our best to transfer this code to the public repositories. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes not. Then there is the Dasharo support package, which is annual support package, which is with clear contract. It's really release driven by customers. So customers saying like, I want this and this in the release, and I want this release at that point. We essentially doing like very direct communication with customer. There is a private issue reporting system. There are also syncs. So it's like for all the other customers which do not have this high demands, like those big companies which require enterprise package. And finally, there is Dasharo community support, which is what we will talk about here. And to explain Dasharo community support and what kind of sponsoring models this has. So Dasharo community support is essentially most of the platforms that we're releasing on the Dasharo website, except a couple which are like NovaCustom or Protectly, which are under the Dasharo support package. So Dasharo community support can be sponsored in various ways. I already explained some. So for the supported hardware, let's say MSI, you can just buy this hardware and we get the funds. If you're buying from us, you can buy also from the reseller. So we also get this in somehow. So this is first source of money that coming to us to sponsor the building process, the validation process, the infrastructure, and so on. And there is, and of course, like this have to happen. Like one fee is not enough to create a release. So we're counting that. Depending on the situation, we may need 100 to 150 subscriptions to create another release. So this is how roughly it looks like. So when at some point there is enough funds gathered to do another release, we're doing we're scheduling new release. We essentially checking, okay, what kind of stuff we would like to include. Maybe we're discussing also with partners, like what is the most important. And then at some point we creating this release and shipping that to our subscribers. Yeah. There is then sometimes like there can be a couple of these special updates going to customers, and after some times, let's say less than twice for a year, we're doing community release, which we also schedule on the GitHub. And at some points, we're doing this community release, which is typically just squashing the special releases which go to customers before. The other like supporting sources and kind of maybe a little bit of my ideas for future is like Planet Dasharo support. So let's say there is a Planet mainboard which we plan to support. I don't know, whatever. MSI 890, if there is model like that. So we announcing we're planning this model, and essentially you can buy the subscription as a pieces which will fund that development. But this is not crowdfunding, because in the terms of service you will find that you essentially buying a newsletter. You're just buying a newsletter. This newsletter is just to notify you if this will be supported, like when this will be supported. And of course, if there will be some binaries, the newsletter will consist of binaries for this new hardware platform. Of course, this requires gathering funds at some point. We schedule release, and the same situation as before. Like first, the release is going to customer, then they're going to community. There are other areas of sponsoring, especially some people ask us about the cryptocurrency sponsoring. There is a way for that. There is something called Technology Commons Trust. It is a organization created in Netherlands, I guess, by people associated with NLNet Foundation. And there are some crypto accounts there where you can send money. Of course, you can add a note that this is for sponsoring something. There is like dedicated Technology Commons Trust page for the open firmware funding. And if the money will get there, then you can notify us, or you can just like let them know. And at some points when the funds are available, they can let know NLNet Foundation, yes, there are funds available, and then you can somehow associate those funds to the grant requesters for those applications. So then, like typically after that, we just send grant application, and we waiting if it will be approved. But we have very good relation with NLNet. Of course, not everything is approved always, but they know what we're doing and always selecting the best projects which gives the most to the community. So yeah, those are other sources of Dasharo community support, sponsoring and financing. Okay, so how typical process of the releasing Dasharo look like? So first of all, like for the community supported platforms. So typically there is some very deep dive discovery where there is like hardware proposition, there is research for alternative platforms. There's a lot of discussion like that on the Dasharo general channel on Matrix. There's also value analysis, so how long this platform will be available. Can we use both generation of the processors on this main board, and so on and so on. Then there is some evaluation. We're just buying the hardware, we're trying to see if we can back up BIOS, we can recover it, how hard it is. We're checking like what kind of hardware compatibility we'll have, and so on and so on. Then we start porting, of course, if there are funds available. So porting includes like building manual documentation, the initial deployment procedure, the firmware update procedures. We're creating test matrix, so we want to know what kind of stuff will be covered in the validation process for this platform. And of course, documentation on the Dasharo universe, so docs dasharo.com. Then at some point, we reaching the maturity of this code. We starting validation. As a result of validation, we have hardware compatibility list for the memory, for the graphics card. There is transparent validation section where you get all the test results in spreadsheet, which is available online. I guess right now, some models that we support get even over 200 tests. So it's like this number of tests growing and growing. And right now we have some problem that some of them are too manual, and like we have to try to maximize the automated test because like recently we ended up into too many manual tests. And finally, we would like to create something which is called the Dasharo certification program, where someone can essentially take the hardware and the open source firmware, glue some stuff, set some parameters, run the test suite, and get the results if the device is certified or not. And finally, we're doing the releases. There are two types of releases. The one that I told you is like less than 2 times a year, less or equal 2 times a year, which is community release. And there is this supporter release, which is like more often directly to the inbox of the supporters. Okay, so let's go to the roadmap. I guess it would be best if I could somehow. I guess like you will see my notes. Maybe like this. Not this. this. So I need a little bit notes for that because I just added like I don't recall like what I changed with every possible roadmap. But we essentially divide roadmap into segments and vendors. So first segment is emulation. Like there is essentially no vendors here. Like QEMU is not a vendor, but somehow we had to classify that. We shifted this roadmap because we planned to do the validation, so the green stuff, to do that in Q2 and have released it in Q3. Unfortunately, because of being busy with other stuff, we had to shift that, and that's what happened. But we're still planning that. So the goal of this, of supporting Dasharo in QEMU, is to speed up Dasharo development, because some part of Dasharo development is just set up many like EDK2 set up many options. Creating those options does not require hardware. It can be done purely in the QEMU, and more to that, we could do some CI/CD and validation thanks to that, and speed up the development cycle. Yeah, so we hope to finalize the porting. We already finalized the porting. Right now we have to do the validation and the release. And there will be already released to the community, so there will be no supporter release for this. So next thing is Dell. You know that we had this 7010, 9010. By the way, there are people still inquiring for that. Unfortunately, we were not able to produce the release again. We're still delaying that. I hope we will finally in Q3 do the validation of the Optiplex 7010. I know that LibreBoot already did the 7020, and there is 9020 also supported, I guess. So like hopefully we can also switch to those platforms in future. There is also this cool platform, the T1650, which we plan to do NAS, like open source NAS based on that. But yeah, these are still plans. Maybe in some cooperation with the revenue sharing partners, we could essentially somehow add the subscription and add the plans for subscription, and maybe this would be easier to do the releases for that. But for now, we had to shift that even to the 2024 for release of T1650. I guess the most interesting is the roadmap for desktop MSI and Dasharo for desktop MSI, and most changes regarding our support for MSI platforms are for Z690A and Z790P, which will be on the next slide. So what we changed here is we decided to do validation and the release in the Q3. Before it was split between quarters, but we have to squeeze in Q3, and maybe even I can say that this will happen early in Q3.
Piotr, sorry.
Yeah.
So you're talking about MSI, but I still see the slide about Q35, the QEMU. Is that intentional?
No, it's not intentional. I'm sorry. Definitely not intentional. Okay, so I guess cloning of the presentation didn't work for me. Like this, maybe. Okay, I guess I'm switching slides now. So my mistake, I just cloned the presentation and just switching my slides, but the cloned version didn't switch. So, but anyway, let's get back on track. So yeah, so we decide that we can squeeze stuff in Q3 for version 1.1.2. And this version 1.1.2, I hope it even may happen by the end of July. Then we will, and this will be supporter release. Then we will do another supporter release, which will consist of stuff like overclocking features, stuff like Flash BIOS button, which gives ability to do way more simplified deployment of the Dasharo. There is stuff related with Watchdog, like the Watchdog got some small bug which have to be fixed. There is fan control problem where in the firmware we're spinning at all speed. So I guess those bugs will be fixed in 1.1.3. in 1.1.2 we will support Raptor Lake, so for some it's probably also useful. We're not changing the core boot base. We still will use the old one, the 4.18. But yeah, maybe in future release we will jump to the newer version of core boot. Right now we're focusing on fixing bugs and making everything work and making new generation work instead of switching the base. All that will be deployed by DTS 1.2, I guess, or there will be 1.21 to incorporate some modifications. Then we will do at the end of the year validation, and at the beginning of the next year community release which will include both those minor releases. Then good thing happened for Z790p. We were able to shift the porting to the Q2 because initially it was in Q3. So we were able kind of shift left the development cycle. And now in Q3 we're planning essentially complete this port, achieve the feature parity with Z690A, and do the release, which will be 0.90. So by the way, we kind of changing the release naming convention, release numbering convention. We will always release first release as 09 or 08, something below 1, and then we will realize that okay, this is like, you know, semi-validated in the production. Then we will move to the 1.0. And in similar fashion for 790, we will have another supporter release or special release for the subscribers, which would be 0.91. Yeah, and the feature set of that will also pair with the 690. So I guess that's the most changes in the roadmap. Other stuff is like stays roughly the same. Here is project of Hanetzer. Hanetzer kind of stopped with that. I guess we will have discussion today during the vPub. What can be done with that platform? At this point, like there is nothing new here. Here, the only change for the workstation was shifting KGP D16 release 0.5 to the next quarter, since we essentially had no time because of the MSI Trenchwood project and other stuff to deal with that. And by the way, the problem with upstreaming this code, maintaining that code, KGP getting old. So without additional support and without commitment from the community, I guess like it would be very hard for us to deliver next release. The good stuff is that that Dasharo for Raptor computing system, and by the way, this project was sponsored by Insurgo, is on very good track to be released this quarter, which is like kind of very good news, because like it took us a lot of time to deliver core boot for Talos 2, but I guess we're getting to the point it's finally working. We even created a TPM which is able to be used by heads on that platform. I would be glad to put information about what kind of heads version we will have in this release, but heads is rolling release, so there is no version. We will also probably have to change that if we will do Dasharo releases with heads. But I guess this could be very good news for those who like Power 9 and Talos hardware. And then finally, the server roadmap, which we have Supermicro X11 there. I know Collector HYN likes this platform a lot and would like to see the Dasharo on it. And I have it also in my rack, but the problem is that we had essentially no time to fix that. So we shifted this roadmap, but from the interesting part, I guess there was presentation on the Yocto Dev Day in Prague. I guess this was last weekend or the last weekend, where our developers Maciej or Tomek presented the OpenBMC build for this platform. and I guess there is some path of doing the BMC stuff for X11. So that's essentially it about the roadmap. So what you can do to support us to move that roadmap further and to help us not change the deadlines. Of course, you can buy Dasharo entry subscription or Dasharo supporter entrance. It's available in our shop. Then it's available, of course, through our revenue sharing partners, Nitrokey and NovaCustom. You can also help us finding new revenue sharing partners. So we're looking for someone in Canada, in US, in Brazil, or other South America countries. It's very important for us to gain new partnership, to spread the word about the open source firmware ecosystem. And I guess there are already 32 people in the room. So I guess there is a lot of people who may have some connection and help us spread this and improve the adoption and improve the quality of whatever we have right now. So what is very important. Okay, there are some other ways to help us. You can go to docs.dasharo.com, ways you can help us, and you can look how to help us in different ways. So I guess that's it. I guess we don't have time for questions, or maybe we have. Oh, that's a lot. So I kind of rushed through those slides. Yeah, so any questions from the audience? So we can take probably 2-3 questions.
There is a question about the slide deck.
Slide deck will be published to those who registered, to the those who have tickets, and then kind of in the mid time between this and the next vPub, it will be also published out there. I guess you can also find it on repository, but we essentially send PDFs to those who bought the tickets, which are free. But I guess the selling these tickets help us realize how many people will come. If we're doing good stuff with the marketing, if you like this event, because like more people coming, that means we deliver some value. So yeah, I encourage everyone to buy this free ticket. It's like essentially about leaving your email to which we can send this presentation, and I guess links to video when they will be published, and probably announcements about the next Dasharo User Group and vPub.
Question from Thierry about current KGP D16 status.
I don't know. Do you want to take this? Like it's like I'm not sure if I feel competent.
Okay, so maybe I will take over. So we haven't pushed much forward in regards with the KGP D16, although we see some kind of still interest in there. People are sharing their issues, thoughts, and discoveries on GitHub issues. However, we have not been able to address any new issues, and yet not even mentioning the release.
Yeah. So like, but we still have this plan. I don't know, like maybe we will succeed, maybe not. Maybe I will have to announce shifting this release to the next quarter next time. I hope I will do this as little as possible. You know, Thierry, we had this discussion late night during last vPub about creating a kind of museum project, or kind of like a special project which will like highlight KGP as a unique as a platform, last dinosaur, like last species from this kind, which could be very interesting, because this is last platform which can run without microcode, last platform which had this kind of adoption. It's still sold, and it's still price for that platform is not small. The problem is, I guess, different, that the most people that have this platform, or most people in this ecosystem would not like the subscription model. So they would not like, they would like to get things for free. And unfortunately, we have paid projects, we have revenue sharing projects, we have subscription projects, and those projects will be more important for us because thanks to those projects we can bring margin that will build the ecosystem further. And with KGP we essentially don't have like additional resources and additional gain from kind of doing that. So that's it. I guess we are kind of a little bit boring with that. Any other questions? Yeah, there is Asus X570 question. I guess we can talk about that with Han Etzer during the vPub. Yeah, you can run KGP D16 without microcode. So someone asking, like, I thought x86 has been microcoded from the beginning. Yeah, I guess you could run KGP D16 without microcode, and that's completely fine.
There still is the microcode, but it's built in the into the CPU. But
in the ROM, okay.
Yeah, nowadays the built-in microcode is so buggy when it's coming out from the factory that it cannot run without microcode updates. So that's
yeah. So maybe I should be more clear about that. So microcode which is loaded during the boot process, yeah, not microcode, because there is microcode, as you said, Michał. So yeah.
Yeah, but for Intel platforms, you have no choice. You have to load microcode, even at the reset vector, because otherwise the platform simply won't boot, the modern ones. So we can call them definitely microcoded from the beginning.
Yeah, I guess next presentation is also mine. And then after me, Wessel will tell a little bit about his plans. Yeah, the next one is about Dasharo toolsuit. Sure. Okay, do you see my slides? Okay. Let me see if I can switch. Okay. So next presentation is about the Dasharo-related projects and its roadmap. So essentially right now we have two main Dasharo-related projects. There is Dasharo toolsuit, which I will talk about. Currently, the recent release was 1.2, and there is plans for 2.0. So I will talk about that. And there is a tool which gets some interesting traction on Reddit and various other places, which is called a Dasharo Openness Score. And I will tell a little bit about that. We get to the release 0.1, and there is already a roadmap for 0.2. And yeah, so that's what we will talk about. So Dasharo toolsuite is our kind of Swiss Army knife Linux distribution, which you can boot directly from the boot menu in the Dasharo in the Dasharo BIOS. And you can learn about this Linux distribution. Everything is open, like the source code is open. You can build it yourself from source code. And we essentially use it for a couple things. First of all, we want to have some tool which dealing with all the things that the open source firmware community member user will have to do. So first, of course, first thing is the initial deployment of the Dasharo to the mainboard. So we're using DTS to do this deployment. And to simplify this deployment, this is essentially you booting this DTS and just like running one option, and you have deployment. There are other features like hardware compatibility list report, which gather the logs and send these logs to us, so we can then in future analyze what kind of platforms support that. Maybe some hardware had problems with that, so we have some details about it. There is also ability to recover your system in case of either you don't like Dasharo or something was broken. You can get back your BIOS with the proprietary BIOS and flash it back. We would like to have user-friendly interface. Right now, we cannot say we are very user-friendly, but we're trying. And I guess the very good example of shiny, beautiful interface is from Mr. Chromebox and his firmware update utility. And yeah, because his license allow that, we probably will use this kind of terminal UI to have this like better user-friendly interface to handle various operations related to the firmware. And then finally, the vision is to have some diagnostics and system verification tool where we can check the trustworthiness, like do the attestation of the server, do some platform security provisioning if needed. I guess to some extent Heads does it, like because got tools for provisioning. So this we probably will have this mutual technology development and think about what kind of like mutual gain those projects may have. But the vision for the DTS is essentially to be a system for deployment, provisioning of security features, attestation, not only just initial deployment of the firmware. So the last release was planned for March 2023. We essentially released in 10th May. The changelog consists of firmware update options in the DTS menu. So if you have Dasharo already on your device, you just going to the DTS, booting over network on booting from the USB, and you just clicking one option, and this essentially fetch the BIOS images from our server and flash it. Of course, this is some people don't like it because like this may be not exactly secure. So some people want to have Dasharo firmware image, Dasharo toolsuite image to be flashed on USB, which already include all those updates. We're thinking about that. I guess this is a good idea. We probably will do that, but right now it is like it is. We just added the update option. Yeah, so yeah, we updated the Dasharo the DTS, so you can get all the latest releases, because at some point it was tied to very old release. Right now it's like it can get the most recent release, which is prepared for the deployment using DTS. Then there was a problem with the SSH server. There is a SSH server there, and of course, like it was enabled by default. What was wrong? Marek pointed that out, and we just disabled it. And there is some option you can just enable it if you need it. We just have it because it was very useful to deploy the binaries and for testing purposes and so on. As always, like forget to nothing malicious, forget to disable. Yeah, there was improvement in version comparison because we had this problem of working with people where we're trying to send them some release candidates or some development version. Yeah, so those can be already deployed and the scripts were fixed. Yeah, so we added the flash ROM logs, and we also enabled the IXGBE driver, so we can boot the DTS on the X11 Supermicro server, and some minor fixes in the CI workflow. This is how the menu look like right now. So we essentially can do this hardware compatibility report. We can restore firmware from the hardware compatibility report, I guess either local, either remote one. We can do the loading of the entry subscription keys, which we will use for the updates. Then we can update the Dasharo firmware and other stuff, like we can go to shell and that's it, part of the system. So what is important, like when we gather this hardware compatibility list reports, we would like to have CI which can consume automatically those reports and extend the Dasharo universe documentation to include in the table information. Okay, this CPU was tested, that CPU was tested, that memory was tested, that GPU was tested, because those are information that people always looking for. In case of plans, we plan in Q3 version 2. There is a GitHub milestone. I guess in the presentation you can get to the link, but you will find also under GitHub Dasharo issues milestone. You will find the milestone which is for version 2. We hope to have a QEMU image where we can test the DTS just like without using hardware. So this should speed up validation of some features. Of course, the UI stuff that I told you already about. Then we plan to enable this zero-touch deployment, so one-click deployment for the Dell Precision 1650. I don't know if, like, first of all, we will enable it, but then still there may be just release candidates or dev versions of the builds. So either you will have to do your own build, either wait for the release of Dasharo. Yeah, some logo would be great to promote the project, and nightly builds help in using the most recent features. The long-term vision and features that we would like to incorporate is device authentication to improve Dasharo firmware update. So we would like to get rid of this entry subscription keys or whatever methods like we're using, which are kind of cumbersome and problematic. We would like to switch into the authentication based on the certificates which are delivered, or even maybe on some special information that given Dasharo deployment has, and then authenticate with the server. Ideally, in long run, this would be DRTM based attestation and then authentication, but we will see how this will happen. Then there is this problem of ever-growing DTS image. Of course, like if we want to add new tools, then image is growing. It's hard to boot it over the network. So we have to invent some method of slimming the image, but also having some way of adding new tools, adding more tools for various reasons, for diagnostic purposes, for the deployment purposes, for various reasons. So one idea is to have ability to connect network file system. I don't know if this is a good idea. There is discussion in the issue 366. What could be a good approach for that? So there is also a cool idea with this, with the DTS zero-touch initial deployment for the firmware as is. So what does it mean? So that means essentially core boot deployment or any other open source firmware deployment on the device, this deployment is not based on the binary coming from Dasharo team. So it's like a random build, you can say, but some people just want to try and want to have easy way of doing this. So if we would be able to gather information from the system, create a config, build a BIOS, build an open source BIOS for this, and then flash it, I guess this would enable a lot of people, and that would be first stage. I guess the future stage would be the Dasharo certification program, where we can essentially fix bugs and all the problems that are discovered by these as-is deployments, and then create a Dasharo images, if of course there is enough market for that. Then Dasharo security features provisioning and attestation. I already told you about that. There is also a GitHub issue for that, but this is long story, and I don't know when we will get to that point. But those are the ideas, and if anyone want to help, like, please chime into the issues discussion. The next project which we decided to do, which we think is very important, we started with MSI and then expanding, for example, to NovaCustom, is Dasharo Openness Score. Is a tool which is designed to quantify the openness of the firmware images. Of course, like, there are various places, even linked on the openness score related issues, where people discussing how this can be done reliably. So Ron said there is not good method, there is no ideal method. I guess at some point Mr. Chromebox saw this approach and say that he don't exactly like this way of measuring things. But on the other side, like, we can endlessly discuss which method is better, which method is worse. We have to do something and then maybe iteratively improve it. So the tool is written in Python. It's permissively licensed under MIT, so everyone can fork it and do whatever they want with that. And the goal here is to create a universal standard for judging how open is the given firmware image. And I guess, like, we mainly care about the Dasharo releases and showing that the proprietary release or vendor release was this kind of openness, or zero openness typically, and our release is this kind of openness. Yeah, so we can quantify somehow, and there are some graphs I will show on the next slide to compare some builds. Then other thing is, of course, visual clarity. We have to provide some appealing look and feel so people understand what they see on these images. It is not that easy. It's not so simple because we are engineers and tend to go into some nitty-gritty details of the of what we see. And for regular user, this may be not the best way. So we have to still improve the visual clarity of what we present. Then we would like to have this integrated in CI/CD pipeline, but of course CI/CD needs some maintenance, like it have to run. We would like to introduce new version of the openness score, but we would like to make it kind of standard part of the release process, of the Dasharo release process. Then of course certification component. I hope that this can be a pivotal element into Dasharo certification program. As I told you already, there are some criteria which we build. I guess there will be various grades of certification, but we have to have some certain openness when we want to certify something. Yeah, sure. Then transparency in open source. We would like to have some clear measures and some apple-to-apple comparison when we're discussing openness of various things in the ecosystem. So that's something that we care about. So at the end of May, we released version 0.1. Yeah, so I guess, like, this is very detailed changelog. What is important, like, we can parse the core boot images, the UEFI images. We understand the fmap. We understand the various regions inside the BIOS, and then can, based on that understanding, assign if those are regions which are containing proprietary stuff or open stuff. Yeah, so there were some tools that we used, the CPFS tool, the UEFI extract tool. I guess to some extent we have similar features to Fietka. editor because we had this discussion with Daniel about that. But this is essentially dedicated to creating a visual representation of the openness. Then we have this like algorithms for categorizing. This is open, closed, or maybe this is just data, which is like neither open, neither like data format can be open, can be closed. But then we have to judge if this is how we classify that. Yeah, I guess I said most of that. Then we can, of course, illustrate that with the graphics, with the percentage share of each type of the component. And of course, we can also generate some comma-separated value file for machine processing if someone needs. So this is example of MSI. On the right side, we have UEFI image code openness for vendor BIOS. Yeah. So we see like it's completely closed source, like it's essentially closed source, 100% closed source. And then on the right side, on the left side, we have Dasharo version. Of course, this is not much impressive because the FSP and the management engine takes a lot of space, and it's a lot of code, and it's probably a lot of work to create the open version of that. On the other side, for 3MDev, for Dasharo team, part of this code, which is shown here as a closed source, is open because we have access to FSP source code. But anyway, what I want to say is that you see like what kind of stuff, how much you're gaining and how much still you miss to get full openness of this image. This example is, I guess, like way more interesting for especially those privacy paranoid or privacy conscious. And so the discussed KGP D16 is like 100% open source stuff. Yeah. Then there is head stuff. I guess this 2.1% is this minimized ME, or I'm not sure which. I don't remember what is this 2.1%. I guess Thierry or Michał can tell us that. But anyway, that's the comparison of the heads X230 with the KGP D16, and that's so we essentially seeing this evolution where back in the days we could have 100% open source. Today we have like 50%, almost 50% open source, which is like the difference is huge, I would say. Okay, so the version 02, what we're planning for the version 02, which hopefully can be released in Q3. Yeah, so Thierry is saying it's ME. Yeah, so not ME. The ME is not measured in this statistics, but there is something which is to microcode. Okay, that's fine. So the microcode is the blob which takes this 2.1%. Anyway, about version 0.2, essentially we would like to improve the visualization. The visual representation is like as you saw. Of course, there are more graphs and there are some tables, but we can do better, and I hope we will do. Then CI/CD integration that I told you about. Then we would like to include the openness score in various places, like present this as a part of Dasharo User Group. Oh, there is new platform. There is this roadmap, and on this roadmap there is this platform, and this platform will gain this kind of openness level when it will reach this version of Dasharo. So that's something what we want to do. We would like to include that in the newsletters with the updates. Then we would like to compare Dasharo binaries with reference binaries. That's obvious, like because we want to show the value of Dasharo and probably other firmware frameworks. Then documentation have to be improved, especially that we would like to have all the stuff, how the Python script works public, so the users can go there and look it in. And if there is any developer, Python developer, feel free to contribute to this project. More measures we can get, more bigger database we can build, more interesting discussion can be, and more analysis about what we should choose as a trustworthy computing device. Yeah, so versioning, of course. Yeah, sure. I'm finishing. That's essentially last slide. Yeah, and more parsing stuff, which is important to understand other components, better understand the components of the firmware. And that's essentially it about the openness core. And I guess we can switch to Wessel.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so yeah, I would like to tell something about our new plan to introduce some kind of subscription. Piotr already told a few details about it, but I will dig in a bit about this. Yeah, so please go to the next slide. Piotr?
Trying, but I don't know why it's it's like so big delay.
Yeah, just for those who don't know that yet, NovaCustom is a custom laptop supplier based in the Netherlands, and we started offering our laptops with a core boot firmware starting from, I believe it was by the end of 2021, I think. We have a good relationship now with ReamDeb and the Dasharo community. And now we are actually looking for a further, some kind of step to improve security. And one of those features is something that we are planning, which is called the Dasharo Entry subscription, which includes the support for HATS firmware. And there are a few advantages of this HATS firmware that I would like to explain a bit. And I will tell you something about the costs. And after that, we will move forward to Intel boot card, which we will discuss. I will tell you something about the firmware update procedure and our plans for this year and next year. So one of the great benefits of HATS firmware is that it is very minimalistic compared to EDK2, and this causes a reduced attack surface. So you have smaller code, which means that you have obviously fewer potential backdoors, and it should also improve the feasibility to review and audit the code, just because it's like smaller codes, so smaller codes to review. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the good thing about HATS is that it brings a really enhanced security feature, because it verifies the integrity of key components during the boot, and these key components include the UEFI firmware. That is the firmware responsible for booting and initializing. Another key component that's being verified is the kernel, which is the core of the operating system that manages the system resources and essential services. And also the bootloader is being verified, which is the software responsible for loading the operating system kernel into the memory, which is normally grub2 for Linux operating systems. And by the way, as far as I know, only Linux operating systems are supported. At least Windows is not. That's what I wanted to say here. So how does it work? It works with a measured boot, and that creates cryptographic hashes for each components, which are linked to each other, and these hashes are stored in the TPM, which is another part of hardware, and so the firmware uses the TPM to securely store and attest the integrity of the measurements. And it does this in a very early state, so before it, obviously before it gets to the operating system. Next, please. Thank you. Yeah, so another great benefit of HATS firmware is that it has a native integration with CubesOS, and with CubesOS and HATS firmware, you will have a great chain of trust. So thanks to the TPM, and this firmware, you will have a solid base to start your operating system. So together with a solid operating system such as CubesOS, yeah, you can say you have a reasonably secure laptop. That's the goal. So unfortunately, we cannot, of course, deliver such a thing for free. The subscription will cost 60 euros a year, plus maybe some taxes based on your country. And while you are purchasing the laptop from us, you can choose between 1, 2, or 3 years of subscription. This subscription has to be renewed after it has been expired. It does not automatically continue. Also, I believe this will all go through an email system to inform you about the subscription. But well, I think these details haven't even been worked out yet. But in fact, no renewal means that it's, of course, you will still be able to use your current installed version, but you will not receive any further updates or support. Then let me tell you something about Intel Boot Guard, which we are looking at. So Intel Boot Guard offers a great protection layer between the firmware and the processor from unauthorized modifications. and these the firmware parts are digitally signed with signatures, and this, yeah, like I said, this offers a great extra protection layer, but there are some concerns about Intel boot guard. One of the things is that the keys that are related to unlock the system, in fact, to make it work, these are in the hands of the manufacturer normally. Then, in fact, the whole Intel boot guard is useless because anyone could just yeah, sign the firmware again with its modified, maybe even tempered version. Another thing that is a concern for us is that Intel boot guard disallows the end user to modify the firmware. So we were quickly thinking, like, what can we do? Maybe we can give the keys to the end customer so that you can still make these modifications. But Piotr told me then we've got some legal problems to deal with. So this is in a state of discussion, and maybe we will at some point get a solution for this. Also, you have an option that is called CPU fusing, where the CPU refuses to execute anything if the firmware key is not correct. Yeah, then let me tell you something about the firmware update procedure. And right now, as Piotr told, so the Dasharo tool suite is made to update, maintain the firmware, and we are introducing some new security features that will make the firmware update a little more complex, because to boot the Dasharo tool suite, you would have to disable secure boot, and also another function that we will introduce, which is SPI flash lock. So basically now the user would have to disable those functions in the firmware settings, then go to the Dasharo tool suite to flash the firmware, and then eventually restore these settings as they were. For some users, like advanced users, this is not a problem at all, but we've got some customers, actually quite a lot of customers, who really care about a great accessibility to firmware updates. These are not advanced users, but still like the way of openness, of open firmware, at least as open as possible. So therefore, we thought, like, maybe we can use FWUPD like we supported in the past. If we use that, then we would maybe not have this problem. But then we face another problem, because FWUPD is not capable of flashing the EC firmware, at least for our devices, because it's not, this EC firmware is not stored in the main SPI flash. So yeah, okay, we will have to find an alternative update solution to keep the firmware update procedure accessible. I would like to remind you that we have the NovaCustom NV41 series available with CubesOS, and that is CubesOS certified, which means that the CubesOS developers team make sure that this hardware runs fine, the new releases work fine, and they verify that before releasing new versions of CubesOS. And this will also be the only NovaCustom model that we will offer for the entry subscription with HATS firmware, and that's that's because the NV41 series is the only laptop that we currently have that works perfectly with S3 suspend mode, which is the only suspend mode at this time that's working with CubesOS. Next, please. Yeah, so I would like to say once again to everyone who owns a NovaCustom device or any other Dasharo device, please, let's be active and let's solve firmware issues together, because with your input, we can make Dasharo even greater. Next, please. Thank you. So this is my last slide, I believe. So in 2023, this year, we will have the Dasharo entry head subscription. Of course, we will have some bug resolves for our laptops. We are looking for a way to deliver better update accessibility for not so advanced users. And we will also introduce some new firmware features, including UEFI setup password, SMM BIOS write protection, early boot DMA protection, network stack enabling disabling, USB stack enabling disabling, and we are also looking for a way to offer physical anti-tamper solution. Next year, we will probably offer DDR5 models and PCI 5 laptops with 14th generation Intel Meteor Lake. So we will skip Raptor Lake, and this is because it's financially unfeasible to develop firmware for every generation for us at this moment. We will probably also introduce a new set of firmware features, and we are thinking about Flex Charger, which is basically copied from inside firmware, where you can set the battery charge levels. Microphone and camera switch is something that we would like, same for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, to be integrated in the firmware as a setting, and who knows about Intel boot card. So yeah, that was it from my side. Thank you for your attention, and maybe you have some time left, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I have one thing to say as a closing remark. Do you see my screen? Let me close like so. Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, thank you very much for joining the Dasharo User Group second edition. Like, I hope we'll do this as long as we'll have strengths, and maybe at some point it would be in different format, maybe something more live. But right now, like, we have this remotely And I hope you enjoyed this. I see like good amount of people here, and of course, like we're finishing the official part, we're switching to the not official part. So you can like we will take short break. You can get your glasses filled with whatever you want to drink today, coffee, water, milk, or maybe something stronger. And let's talk about privacy and all that stuff. Privacy, security, trustworthiness, and open source firmware, open source hardware, open silicon. But as a last thing is like we still have to continue our mission and our vision of creating a world where all the computing devices are trustworthy and we can verify this trustworthiness. To do that, we cannot do this alone. We need people which believe in this mission, in this vision of the world. And that's why we're always looking for people to work with. Of course, we are based in Poland, so we have some economical limitation to what we can pay. But if you are from certain economic areas and you are motivated to work with us, feel invited, send us your CV, and please join. If you think you don't have enough expertise but you are interested in the field, maybe in future you would like to join, maybe you are studying right now or you are in high school, then there is this portal, OST2 FYE, and there are free courses, and some of courses are done by 3M Dev team. Those are related with core boot, with UEFI, with x86 architecture, with security, very important stuff. And if you can master those courses, you will definitely easily get through the hiring process in 3M Dev. So that was my message. And of course, like, please convince everyone to buy Dasharo entry subscription. You're helping us that way. I guess if we will prove this model works, we will send the signal to the whole world that the open source firmware can be sustainable and can work. And I hope thanks to that we can enable more and more hardware for your use. So that's it. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you appreciate this time, and let's see on the next Dasharo user group. And now we're switching to the vPub.